My name is Ayanda. I'm a young girl who recently moved from South Africa to Canada to pursue my university education. An exciting leap into a new world I was both eager and anxious to explore. In my first year, I met two fellow students who quickly became close friends. One immigrant like myself, Debbie from Nigeria, and a white girl from United Kingdom named Catherine. We bonded almost instantly, drawn together by our shared experiences of navigating a new life in a foreign land. Now, in my second year, life was settling into a rhythm. Some months had passed since Catherine's younger sister, Cassie, resumed her studies in our school. She had already started her second semester by the time all of us were finally able to plan a visit to her off-campus hostel. Life and school had kept us busy, and though we had meant to go earlier, it just never aligned. But finally, we made the time. We were all excited. New beginnings always carried a special energy. When we arrived, Cassie was with her roommate. The vibe in the room was warm and lively. We chatted, laughed, and shared tips on how to survive the Canadian academic jungle. Cassie seemed eager to learn, absorbing everything we said like a sponge. It felt like an ordinary evening, until there was a knock on the door. Cassie smiled and said, "He's here." There was a spark in her eyes that made all of us curious. She opened the door and hugged the visitor warmly. Then a well-built black guy with a neatly trimmed haircut stepped in. He had a confident stride and an aura that demanded attention. "Y'all meet my boyfriend," she said cheerfully. "This is Tabo." The name hit me like a ton of bricks. Tabo. I looked at him properly for the first time, and an unsettling coldness swept over me. He looked so familiar. No, not just familiar. He looked exactly like my high school senior back in South Africa. Tabo, my senior. Someone I hadn't seen in years. But this couldn't be. Could it? What made it even more chilling was how young he looked, just as he had in high school. Not a single sign of aging, as though time had completely skipped him. My friends, especially Catherine, were delighted to meet him. There were handshakes, smiles, and casual questions flying around. I wanted to say, "Hi, Senior Tabo." I wanted to ask, "How have you been?" But the words wouldn't come out. All I could manage was a polite nod and a forced smile, pretending like I had only just met him on campus, like the rest of them. Inside me, 1,000 thoughts clashed. Why is he here? Why did he say anything if he remembered me? Surely it can't be him. But it looks just like him, even sounds like him. The gathering carried on with light-hearted banter, but I was distracted, distant. Cassie casually mentioned that his hostel was just down the hall, about 4 rooms away. I nodded absently. When Tabo stood up to leave, he turned to say goodbye to everyone, and for a split second, his gaze locked on mine. Something passed between us. It wasn't a smile. It wasn't a threat. It was something else, an eerie silence that wrapped itself around me like a chilling breeze. I shuddered slightly. Maybe I was overthinking. Or maybe not. After he left, the coldness I had felt vanished like it was tied to his presence. Still, the questions lingered. I could have told my friends that I knew him, that something felt off. But I didn't. I kept it all bottled up. Later that night, Catherine asked, "Ayanda, how do you know him again?" I replied, "Oh, I've seen him around with some of the Zulu students on campus." That was technically a lie. They noticed I was uneasy, but I brushed it off with a tired smile. "I'm fine. I lied." We had already decided to sleep over at Cassie's. Everyone else eventually drifted off to sleep or relax, but my mind was racing. And then the thought hit me like lightning. Is Tabo reincarnate? The very idea made my blood run cold. You see, I'm not just South African. My mother is Nigerian, and growing up I was blessed and sometimes burdened with 2 rich cultural backgrounds. In addition to the Zulu and broader South African traditions, I was also exposed to the deeply spiritual Yoruba beliefs from my mom and her brothers, my uncles. During visits in Nigeria, I'd often listen to them tell stories of reincarnation, of people dying and returning, not always in the same family, sometimes to fulfill a purpose, sometimes for redemption, sometimes to live the life they couldn't before. In my culture, reincarnation isn't mere folklore. It's a spiritual reality. A person who dies can be reborn in a different body, often far from where they originally lived or died. In Yoruba belief, this is called akadaya, the return to live again. This form suggests that individuals who die can reappear in a different place, potentially far from their original home, and continue living with the same appearance and age. Even starting a new life, they didn't get to live because their life was cut short. Just as this realization sank in, something happened. The restroom door, which had been firmly shut, creaked open on its own. We all turned sharply. "Oh, that thing acts up sometimes," Cassie said, dismissing it with a shrug. "It's a faulty hinge." But I knew better. From that moment, the atmosphere shifted. The stereo turned on by itself, blasting static noise before going silent again. A book fell off the cabinet. Then the lights flickered. It wasn't loud or dramatic, but subtle, enough to make your skin crawl. We had to turn on our torch for a split second. My suspicion hardened. This is not normal. Tabo is not just a look-alike. He's something else. A reincarnate. I had heard stories growing up, tales whispered during family gatherings. My grandmother once told me about a man who died in Durban but was seen living years later in Botswana, thriving with new family. My uncle also told me an unbelievable story similar to reincarnation, about a child in Nigeria who was believed to be reborn with knowledge of a life he never lived, and later identified a house and people from that life, down to the finest detail. No explanation, no memory of the old life, at least not consciously. They say these reincarnated souls disappear once they feel their covers blown. Curiosity and confrontation can destroy their new existence. So I kept quiet. I didn't want to be the reason Tabo's soul lost peace. As if hearing my thoughts, the room settled. The weird occurrences stopped. A sense of peace washed over me, almost like a warm embrace. I closed my eyes and drifted off to sleep. That's when I saw him in my dream. Tabo, but not in the clothes he wore earlier. He was adorned in full white regalia, glowing softly, with a willful look on his face. He walked toward me and asked gently, "Why are you scared?" I was frozen, unable to speak. But my thoughts were loud. "Why would I want to spoil it for you?" As if he heard my mind, he replied, "Thank you." He then turned around and walked away and disappeared into thin air. I woke up stunned and still too shocked to react. Morning had come. We cleaned up, said goodbye to Cassie, and went about our classes. I tried to bury the experience deep in my mind, labeling it as just a dream. But months later, Catherine dropped a bombshell. "Cassie is pregnant," she said. "For who?" I asked, shocked. She responded, "Tabo off course, and she hasn't seen him in weeks. He just disappeared." She was clearly worried about her sister. "The weirdest part," she added, lowering her voice. A few days after he vanished, Cassie found a letter slipped under her door. No name, no note, just a thick envelope filled with cash. Not just pocket change. We're talking enough to cover her rent, tuition, groceries, even baby needs for the next couple of years. It was as if someone knew what was coming and made sure she'd be okay. She paused, then added, "We're almost certain it was from him, but no one's seen him since." Before hurrying off to class, she turned to me and asked, "Have you seen him recently? Like, with any of the South African student groups or something?" I shook my head, trying to keep my face neutral. "No, I haven't." "Okay, we'll talk more on the phone later," she said before disappearing into the crowd. The news shook me to my core. My heart was racing as I take a stroll in the walk path, thousands of thoughts crossing my mind. Could he really have been a reincarnate? Was I right all along? Or did I manifest the entire situation from fear and imagination? But what about the weird events? The dream? The eyes, those familiar eyes? Could it all be coincidence? Tabo is a common South African name. Maybe he just looked like my senior from high school. Maybe I wanted to believe it was something more. Still, it fits. His sudden disappearance, the unspoken energy, the eeriness. Some say when reincarnates are identified, their new identity begins to collapse. That might explain why he vanished after our encounter. But I hadn't said a word. Could my thoughts alone have done this? And then came the moment that nearly shattered me. As I was walking to class, distracted, thoughts swirling in my head, someone bumped into me, and my textbook dropped. As I bent down to pick it up, the guy who bumped into me apologized. "It's fine," I responded casually, barely looking. But as he turned to walk away, I caught a glimpse of his face. "Tabo," I gasped. I chased after him, my heart pounding. But when he turned around, it wasn't him, just a stranger. I stood there, dazed. Was I losing my grip on reality? Was Tabo even real to begin with? One thing I do know, whether or not it was really him, he was a good senior to me once, and Cassie, innocent Cassie, is now carrying a piece of him. I will be there for her. I'll be a godmother to her child if she'll let me. Even if Tabo was never real in a way I think he was, he left something behind. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what reincarnates come to do. In every culture, there are stories, some whispered, some written in songs, others passed down through generations around fires under starlit skies. In African traditions, especially among the Yoruba, reincarnation is more than folklore. It is a spiritual truth. It speaks to the idea that life is not a straight line, but a sacred cycle, that sometimes those who leave this world are called back to finish what was left undone, to love who they never got the chance to, or to exist quietly among us watching, guiding, healing. Tabo may or may not have been who Ayanda thought he was. But what matters most is what he stirred in her, a remembering, a questioning, a deep spiritual awareness that not everything can or should be explained away. Some souls return not to be recognized, but to leave something behind, a child, a moment, a shift in someone's path. And perhaps the real lesson is this. We don't always need closure to offer compassion. We don't always need clarity to show up for others. Whether he was real, a reincarnate, or a figment of memory, Tabo changed something, and that change will echo through Cassie, through Ayanda, and through the child yet to be born. In the end, the line between the seen and the unseen is thinner than we think. And maybe, just maybe, that's where the magic lies. Do you believe in reincarnation? Have you ever met someone who felt too familiar, like they had lived before? Could Tabo have been a reincarnated soul, or was it all in Ayanda's mind? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your take. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and turn on post notifications so you'll be the first to know when we upload more stories exploring the mysteries of life, culture, and the unknown. Disclaimer: this story is a work of creative storytelling inspired by publicly available cultural knowledge and fictional interpretation. It is not based on any specific real-life individuals or events. Any similarities to actual persons, living or dead, are purely coincidental. The author and this channel do not claim expert authority on reincarnation or cultural spirituality and are not liable for interpretations or responses to the narrative presented. Thank you for watching.